You might think you know what's coming here, but this isn't just another build video. This time, the stakes are higher because I challenged these LEGO YouTubers to build a clone base in 30 days, and we're gonna see who comes out on top when we put our builds up against each other. Each of us chose a different clone legion for our bases, and I chose to use the 501st because I have a bunch of them in my collection, and I haven't used them in a large build yet. I've got big plans for this base, and I'm really excited to give it a go, so let's not waste any time here and get straight into building. Well, we're not off to a good start here. I've lost like half of my time on this project due to having to get my appendix taken out, which is obviously something that's outside of my control, but it's still frustrating nonetheless. So yeah, I was able to get some planning done while I was in recovery, which is good. So the time wasn't completely wasted. Let's take a look at this micro scale build that I got started with, and I can show you guys what I'm planning. Since I'm limited to this footprint, I want to try something completely different from any base I've ever built before and go vertical with it. I have the main control tower up top, which connects to this landing pad and a medical center over here. I want to add a bunch of foliage below everything and a smaller structure on the ground that should provide some sort of a tactical advantage. There are only two rules in this competition. First, the base has to be 64 by 64 studs, which is the same as 4 regular LEGO base plates. And second, we're only showing day-to-day operations, so no droid invasions or anything like that. Let's actually start building now because time is not on my side here anymore and I really need to start making some progress. I began building with Technic brick plates to create a strong structure for the foundation. After adding a black border around the edges, I moved on to marking out my main structures and placing filler bricks so I could elevate the landscape toward the back of the build. I covered everything in reddish brown since I wanted it to be the base color for my terrain. After I got that done, I moved on to building up the bottom sections of the towers. I wanted the base of the pillars to be thick and have some basic detailing, so I used slopes to create some patterns around the edges. Once everything was marked out, I decided I should probably work on building the rest of my terrain before getting into the main structures so I have less to work around. I laid down a bunch of medium nougat plates and tiles. I placed them in areas between buildings to create some muddy pathways that show where the clones normally walk from place to place. With my paths marked out, I knew where I wanted to put my doors, so I came up with a design and built 3 doors to access the internal structure of each pillar. I attached them to the front of the pillars with snot bricks. I left this area open because I wanted to build a large tree trunk to go in this spot. I used snot bricks to create an internal structure for the trunk, and then I added slopes and wedges around the outside to create the external shape and texture. After I got the tree stump in place, I grabbed my green foliage parts and I began building undergrowth. I covered as much of the brown area as possible with the larger plant elements, and then I added layers of leaves on top to create a thicker texture. After finishing that section, I built another part of a tree to lay down on the ground between 2 of the pillars. I built the same style of foliage around the large tree trunk, and then I continued filling in all the brown areas around the rest of the base. This was pretty time consuming, but I like the way these plants look and it really brings the landscape to life. Now that my landscaping is done, I can turn my attention to the main structures. I continued building up the pillars with regular bricks and included some design features with a sideways building technique to add detail to the walls so they weren't blank. I built a couple of these turrets so I could wall mount them on the pillars to help increase the base's defense options against enemies. After that, I made this bridge to connect our first 2 towers together. This would allow people to go between the medical area and the landing platform without needing to go down to the ground level. Once I got that situated, I started working on the exterior of the building. Since this was the lowest tower, I wanted to get it done first. I tested a few different options to get some interesting angles and cool wall designs. Okay, so quick update. I've got about a week left before I need to be done building so I can actually make the video that you're watching right now, and I'm feeling okay about it, but I'll say, as somebody who's worked collaboratively with others on almost all of my large-scale building projects, doing all of this on my own means that my time estimates are way off. I keep thinking that I'm going to accomplish a good bit more than I actually end up getting done every day, so I'm feeling the pressure, that's for sure. Moving on to the landing pad, I need this thing to be super solid, so I built up multiple layers of plates and bricks to make it really strong. It's going to connect to the command center with a bridge, so it needs to be thick enough that I can use the same bridge design as before without it looking disproportional. I used some solar panel printed pieces from the LEGO Ideas International Space Station to add a pop of color, but this also gives the base a backup power source in case they need it. Next, I created a walkway out to the side with a ladder to connect the lower part of the tower to the landing area. I wouldn't be able to have an elevator or anything coming up the center of the platform platform, so this seemed to be the best option. After adding some small defense turrets around the edges, I think the landing platform is looking great. I built a long bridge to connect over to the final tower, and after wrapping that up, it was time to get the third tower built up to its desired height. For the command center, I wanted to create a building with good visibility and an interesting shape. I used hinge bricks to create the walls in sections so they could bend to different angles. I built sideways to create the flooring for the tower, and I built the roof in a similar octagon pattern, but I made it a little bit wider so it would hang over the edges. These building sections don't snap together, but they hold together really well with gravity. I stacked each section together, and I'm happy with how the top of this tower looks. I also built a large turret to sit on the roof along with some satellites and antennas for communication. The last section I needed to finish before building the interiors was this area down on the ground. I built 2 platforms and tiled them off to look nice and smooth. The taller platform was a perfect spot to put this shield generator that I built. Just one more way to increase my base's defense level. I added in a couple of crates and weapons behind the shield generator and moved on to finishing up the interior of the medical bay. I got it tiled off and started adding in some smaller builds to fill up the space. I built this tall computer to go in the corner and 2 Bacta tanks for the clones to heal up after their battles. On the opposite side, I added another computer along with a medical bed. Moving back up to the main control tower, I built this viewing platform to sit next to the window and some computers. This computer design was made by LegoMan360. You should go check out his channel if you like LEGO Star Wars content. He also happens to be a channel member, which means he's going to get to see all of the exclusive members only videos that I'll be coming out with, starting with a full tour of my LEGO studio later this month. Hit the join button below this video on desktop or Android so you can join the Firebird Legion and don't miss out on any exclusive content. Moving on to figure placement, the control center seemed like a fitting place for this clone lieutenant, and I placed this clone pilot next to him so he can receive his next mission briefing. I also threw in a couple 501st grunts at the computers and on the viewing platform. I put Anakin's Jedi Interceptor down on the landing platform, and then I grabbed my Captain Rex and Anakin. I placed them having a conversation on the bridge in the center of the build. I decided to use 501st jet troopers as the main clone in this build. It seems to make the most sense to me with how elevated everything is, and the jetpacks would help the troops to move around the base much more quickly if they come under attack. This medical tower seemed like the perfect spot for a medical droid, and I also included a Kaminoan with an injured clone receiving some treatment. I placed this regular 501st trooper down by the shield generator, and I got 4 clone cadets from Mike and Ike. I put them over toward the back of the build, running some training exercises before they head up to the command center. I placed a couple more jet troopers over by this tower, and then I color swapped this ATRT to match the 501st blue color with the pieces I had available. After adding a few more troops around the base, I think my work here is done. Let's take a look at the final build. Make sure you go check out the builds by SW Bricks, Coconut Bricks, and RichBoyJhae using the playlist on the end screen of this video. I'm going to put a link in the pinned comment down below where you can go vote for your favorite base, and then on December 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern, all 4 of us are going to be streaming on Coconut's channel. We're going to be announcing the winner of this challenge, and we've also got some other fun things planned, so you're definitely not going to want to miss it. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good one.